Hi, and welcome. Welcome to episode 2 of Center Radio, COVID-19 edition, Indiana County. My name is Gerald Smith. Welcome to episode 2. We are joined today by our more. His guests are Barbara Crosay from the Chevy Chase Community Center, Dr. David Loomis, a reporter from the Hawkeye. I am also joined by Pastor Elizabeth Mount and Dr. Brandon Vick, who are essential for our Zoom and Facebook production. I want to give special shout out also to Don Pappy Henry, who is our WIUP engineer there in the booth. We're produced remotely and really excited. Also want to give special thanks to research assistant Laura Thomas, who helped us out with some research today. So again, this is Center Radio, the Sunday, March 29th, 2020, broadcasting remotely. The mission of the Center for Community Growth is to lead individuals and organizations in and around Indiana County, advancing social, racial, gender, LGBTQIA, economic, and environmental justice. This COVID-19 Indiana County edition is a regular new broadcast designed to keep you informed in the coming weeks about the COVID-19 pandemic. The remote news broadcast will help you understand how this pandemic is impacting the Indiana community. We'll be coming to you on Sundays at 2, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4. Each episode will be available for replay or streaming live on Facebook, and on Sundays we'll be brought to you by WIUP. So welcome. We're going to start right off. Our first segment is we like to talk about where are some good resources for data. I'm going to hand it over to our I'm calling it Data with Pastor E, who's going to tell us a little bit about some great resources for finding data on COVID-19 and how it's impacting Indiana County. Can I pass it over to Pastor Elizabeth?
You can. Hey, so I just am here not as an expert in virology or anything fancy like that, but as an average person to say, hey, with so much changing from day to day, what is it that I can do to stay informed? Where is the information for a lay person to figure out what's going on from day to day, week to week with news about the virus? If you're looking for what it means to be flattening the curve, what kinds of growth in case numbers are happening, I'm just going to share a couple of pieces of information with you all in hopes that that will be helpful. So the first site that I find really useful, and you might as well, is this site that is from the Department of Health here in Pennsylvania, health.pa.gov. They have a whole section on coronavirus, including this really useful map that will show you what's going on in various counties. You'll see Indiana County has turned green, which is to say we do have active cases. We had one just a few days ago, and now we're up to 2 confirmed cases in the county. That's not a high number in total, but it does mean that we're experiencing growth in the number of confirmed cases. So, you know, as our sort of viral weather report, the news is, hey, stay indoors. Keep yourself home when you can. And then the other place that I'm finding really useful that we didn't talk about during the last show is a site that's called 91DVOC. So it's COVID-19 backwards. And that one is using information from Johns Hopkins, who are data gathering from various state and local governments to keep as up to date as possible on various healthcare systems estimates of how many infections there are. And they're mapping a day-by-day infection rate. So you can see in this first one by country, the United States right now is tracking at about a 35% daily growth rate. But you'll notice that curve line is starting to curve downward, which is to say we are starting to see the effects of flattening the curve in some of our urban areas. And we'll see more of that the more that people are attending to the various restrictions and keeping themselves safe and healthy. It also has by state and territory, and you'll see that some of our states are managing to pull their curves down quite a bit. Pennsylvania is tracking just a little bit above the average there. And so that's for all of us to change. So that's what's going on. I'm hoping that these will be useful links for you all in terms of information, and knowledge is power. And we have the ability to do better when we know what is going on in the world. So keep yourselves informed, and I hope that this broadcast helps you with that. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you much, Pastor Elizabeth. Those links will be in the resources for this broadcast, and I encourage people to check out those spots of data. I have a little bit that I wanted to add in terms of how this region is reacting. I'm going to share a couple of things right now. The first is the announcement for a stay-at-home order that Governor Wolf executed for Westmoreland County, not Indiana County. One of the reasons that these orders that we're seeing are being extended across Pennsylvania, which may or may not come to Indiana County, we are currently not part of that order, is because we know that social distancing works. And the other resource that I wanted to share with folks here is one from the Washington Post that is in fact not necessarily recent. It comes from, I think, March 15th. But it has some data visualizations that I think are super helpful for folks to understand why it's so important, why social distancing is so important. I think I have a glitch on my screen sharing. I'm going to try and do it right this time. So this article has the Washington Post put together some really slick visualizations, imagining that we had a similar virus in a very small community and what different reactions would do to try and flatten the curve. So I'm going to page down on this article that a lot of folks, I think, did see, but the visualizations, I think, are very striking. So here they put in 200 people with one person infected and no social distancing measures at all. And as you can see very quickly, everyone is very infected. And we would, in this scenario, we would see an incredible strain on our healthcare system, which is what we are trying to avoid before folks ended the healthy. So this is no measures whatsoever. And of course, that's not where we're at. The second is a forced quarantine. This visualization looks at a forced quarantine, but of course, we know that forced quarantines don't actually work. So the Washington Post opens up that quarantine, and we recognize that once again, even with a forced quarantine, meaning people are forced to stay home who are known to be infected, it doesn't necessarily work in real time. And once again, we see a real a bump on our healthcare system, which is what we were trying to avoid. The third scenario that is presented here is moderate social distancing. And this is really, I think, where we are at now. In this scenario, 3/4 of the population are staying still. 1/4 is still moving about, and you can imagine these are folks whose jobs are essential, who are not able to stay at home. I'm talking to some folks who are still working, and there seems to be sort of two parallel things happening these days where some folks are required to go to work and have to move around. They're the moving dots, and a lot of us are staying still. We see the results as not nearly as an impact on our healthcare system. And the last visualization here is, they call it extreme social distancing. This is where only 1/8 of our population are still considered the essential folks. And we see that once again, there is a significant flattening of the curve in these scenarios where people are social distancing as much as possible. We're not going around. As much as possible, you are not one of those dots that are moving around, because we all know that these days it's probably best to assume that you are infected with COVID-19 rather than are not. So a little bit of data I think is really helpful for folks to sort of imagine. In the coming weeks, we may or may see increased restrictions here in Indiana County. But if we do, it's important for our folks to, and our listeners, to understand where they're from.